Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to the Oz and Crew Reviews podcast. I am Ozzy here once again with my co host, Mad Matt.
Hello.
And obviously, I'm just going to start off with saying these have always been being posted on Matt's channel. That's because his channel is actually remotely active, unlike mine. I've kind of dropped out of doing YouTube stuff, but I'm just doing this with Matt because we're buddies and it's fun to do. If you actually want to catch anything I'm doing, just check out my blog at yeretrotavern.blogspot.com because I've been doing some tech stuff, but haven't really been doing YouTube videos. Just wanted to get that out of the way before we start talking about our movie for today, which is Ghostbusters 2.
Indeed.
And it might not feel like it to people, but it's been quite a few weeks since we recorded
Oh.
the last one because of just shit that's been happening in our
Yeah,
lives.
basically IRL just took a fucking toll on everything for a while, and I'm trying to think. Has it been over a month?
It's been, yeah, because my work situation has just fucked me for a month.
Yeah, which is why I've been slowly drip feeding. Once we get a little more back catalog up again, I will try to drop them more frequently back up to about one a week, or at least one, maybe one every other week. Might be a good idea, just in case this happens again.
Yeah.
So we'll have at least a little bit back catalog just in case.
This is once again one of those movies that I think at the time that it was released, it was pretty negatively received.
It depends on who you ask. I tend to find. But there's definitely some people who did not really care for it, and then there's definitely people who absolutely love it. So it's a 50-50 flip of the coin.
And then there's people that probably didn't really like it, but then after 2016 Ghostbusters came out, they looked at it, turned into Thanos, and said, "Perhaps I treated you too harshly."
Indeed. You know what? Maybe the second movie wasn't so bad. Let's go back.
Go
Where's the
back,
backspace
turn
button?
the clock back. Oh, I didn't actually. I think I literally only saw this movie once before. I have to admit, I'm not as big of a Ghostbusters fan as you are, so I haven't watched all of them a bajillion times. It
This movie in particular, I believe my parents somehow got recorded off of HBO for me when I was 5 or 6 years old. And this basically joined The Hobbit on constant repeat of VHS tapes in the house when parents weren't around and just wanted me to sit still and be quiet.
Man, you mentioned The Hobbit, and my brain just immediately went, "Break the dishes, crack the plates. That's what Bilbo
Bill
Baggins hates."
Baggins hates.
Um, you want to do a quick synopsis?
Sure. So, quick synopsis on Ghostbusters 2. It is 5 years later after the events of the first movie. Essentially, every legal ease group of the government has come down on the Ghostbusters, basically forcing them to no longer be Ghostbusters. Ray and Winston have picked up doing essentially birthday parties as Ghostbusters, while Venkman has decided to become a show host for psychic mediums, and Spangler has decided to go off and continue doing weird, odd psychic and mental research. Um, so almost 5 years to the day, suddenly, trying to think of her name now. Dana is outside with her child. She has apparently been married and divorced with somebody else after she dropped Venkman, and she's having a talk with her new apartment owner when suddenly the carriage of her baby in it, Oscar, takes off, and she's literally running through the streets trying to stop it. It stops just short of a bus, and she manages to pick Oscar up out of the cradle. This is after the stroller happened to walk through a small puddle of purplish-looking gunk on the ground. This obviously prompts her to call up the Ghostbusters, originally without Peter Venkman being invited, but he happens to overhear and eavesdrop on them talking about working on stuff for a friend and immediately wants in. So this starts up a bit of interesting dialogue between him and Dana, and mostly about them and why they broke up. And honestly, he takes to being almost a pseudo father figure pretty quickly with a little Oscar.
Which was kind of a
Um,
surprise.
it's kind of a surprise, but at the same time, he is a a child in a man's body. Let's face it. That's kind of what his character is to begin with.
That is true.
Um, so with all this going on, they get caught trying to drill into the street after they find out the hotspot for psychomatic energy is coming from the middle of the street outside. They accidentally hit a power line as they try to get I'm trying to remember names.
Ray.
They tried getting Ray out of the hole they make in the street. He accidentally hit a power line on the way out, but he manages to capture a cylinder of the goop that he found down there. They immediately go to court, and basically the judge is going to throw the book at them. But as he continues to get heated and even more heated, literally threatening their lives at one point, the ooze seems to take reaction to the massive amount of anger in the room, bubbles over, and then suddenly sparks two ghosts back to life. The Scarelli brothers, whom the judge had previously sentenced to death via the electric chair.
And I want
As
to
they're both
point
in
out,
electric chairs.
I want to point out they don't explain till later about the ooze reacting to the anger thing. So I didn't even catch that until they explained it later.
Well, if you're watching very carefully, you can see every time he starts yelling, it bubbles up again. And it's just like, oh, what's that? Why is it doing that? Basically, yeah, he's being super negative, and that's what's causing that to have a reaction. But it turns out that as they capture more and more of the ooze and have a little montage, that they figure out that the ooze reacts to positive things as well. They mentioned the fact that they whispered sweet nothings at night, coach it probably positive thoughts, some lovely music, and apparently Egon's been sleeping with it. As Venkman says, not Venkman, Winston says, it's always the quiet ones. They also then make the toaster dance with the slime, just playing some happy music with the slime inside of it, and even toasts the bread inside of it. Doesn't toast. So they're slowly figuring out how this stuff works and how to actually positively charge it so they can make use of it for other means. And that's about the point where they decide to go underground to try and find where that old train system was that they found the river of slime and try and figure out how deep it is and how much of it there is. Winston ends up being pulled into it. The other two dive in after him while Venkman's off with Dana having a date. After Egon manages to talk the others down from fighting each other, they realize that the slime is causing them a huge amount of anger when they got there, and then they realize they're right at the foot of the art museum where Dana's currently working. They head over to the date and accidentally disrupt the yuppies and get themselves carted off to the mayor. The mayor doesn't want to listen to it. He's trying to go for governor. And his little lurker buddy who's trying to protect him gets the boys sent into the mental institute. As they're being held there, basically all hell breaks loose, much like it did in the first movie. A nice little montage of all kinds of ghosts appearing. The Titanic shows up. Giant spiritual monster going through an archway, all kinds of stuff. So that all happens. They find out where the Ghostbusters are, finally free them, but it's too late to save Oscar as he's being grabbed up by the art museum guy in the form of a really creepy ghost maid. We're not sure why he did that or how he did that. I assume some sort of enhancement from Vigo. And takes the baby back to the museum. Dana shows up. She's sealed underneath the entire museum is then sealed under a giant shell of slime, which nothing seems to break through. Even the Ghostbusters show up and zap it and nothing happens. But that's when they decide they need to find some way to bring a huge amount of positivity right there to the doorstep of the museum, which is when Egon makes the connection with the Statue of Liberty on the license plate of the Ecto 1. They go to over Lady Liberty. They hose the entire inside of her with positively charged slime, play some very happy music from last year's New Year's, and the entire thing just starts walking and listening to their commands via a NES controller.
I just have to say, it really sounded weird for you to say that they shot positively charged slime inside of Lady Liberty.
Well, phrasing, but it's not wrong.
I know. But,
Oh my.
oh man, I'm
If only you can
sorry.
get shoes her size.
I'm sorry.
Uh, well, she is a harbor lady. Um, Lady Liberty walks them back to the museum, manages to smash in the roof for them. They drop in and quickly just save Oscar and try to protect Dana. But when Vigo finally gets angry enough, he actually appears, repels the proton energy back at them to cause them pain, tries to abduct Oscar, but as he's about to take Oscar over again, the music from outside, as people start singing the Happy New Year's theme, causes Vigo to lose form, drops the baby, which Venkman is able to barely catch just in time. And then they hose him and Ray, who was partially possessed earlier, when he and Vigo tries to take him over again. And they then blast and hose down the painting, causing Vigo to finally go away. The movie ends with a new painting in its place, with the four Ghostbusters in like old Roman garb protecting what looks like baby Oscar, and the entire group leaves the museum as Lewis was outside zapping the slime, and it looks like he basically, at least seemingly from the outside, helped to get rid of the slime finally. And that pretty much is the end of the movie, outside of a few outtakes and some extra tidbits in the end credits.
You know, watching the movie and then having you list off everything that happened in the movie, I think I remember why I don't really didn't really remember this movie very well. I imagine when I watched it as a child, I was just sitting there going, I don't know what just happened. Like
I
I
remember it fondly.
I think that's it. I think I watched it as a kid and I was just like, I don't understand what's going on.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, I was a very small Krusty the Clown going, what the hell was that? Just didn't have the cigar. Probably had a lollipop instead.
Are you sure you didn't have one of those sugar cigarettes?
No, I never had any of those, I don't think.
Oh, I miss those. I need to go check Amazon again and see if they have those.
Um, so I I don't even know where to start with this to talk about it because it is such a weird thing. Um, I do find it odd that for some reason Vigo was obsessed with possessing that specific baby.
I don't think it was particularly just that baby. That just happened to be the baby they knew about that they could easily get hold of.
Right, but it's just, it is kind of a weird plot point because the guy from the museum was obsessed with getting together with Dana.
Yeah.
It's like you think that like if you really wanted to succeed at that, you would have picked a different baby other than hers to try and achieve your goals.
No, no. It would have made sense, but whoever said that people who are head over heels make sense.
That's true. Also, being seemingly controlled by an evil painting probably
Being
doesn't help.
controlled, partially controlled by the evil ghost, does not help his manners either. Yeah.
I did think it was funny when they at one point during the day went to the art museum and were interacting with the painting, and the guys like freaking out. I was like, I am surprised nothing happened there at that point.
Kind of did. They set up some interesting stuff to possibly happen. We're never quite sure what happened to Ray there until later.
That is true. But it was one of those things where like Vigo doesn't seem like the patient type, so I was kind of surprised he actually showed restraint when that happened. Then again, he might, I guess that would have ruined his plans if he made
If he came out too soon, yeah.
Yeah. But the whole thing with all the slime going towards the museum and it being like the, what's the word? The nexus of evil, more or less. It's like that really was just kind of like the one tower in the first movie being like the gateway to Gozer, was it?
The apartment, yeah.
It was a very similar setup to the end of the previous
Yep.
movie, including the freaking government fighting with them and then having to like eat their own hat afterwards thing. There were a
Yeah, I
lot.
will
There
say
were,
that at least the final act does tend to play it very safe and play very similar to the first one.
right.
They there's a few extra tidbits to it, but it's more or less still the same thing. No one above them wants to believe them. Try doing something to stop them from helping. Everything goes tits up. They immediately have to let the Ghostbusters do their thing. They save the world. The end. Also, giant monster somewhere. In this case, instead of a giant state puff attacking the city, it's a giant Statue of Liberty suddenly walking down Main Street headed right for the museum.
I'm surprised none of the video games ever had the Statue of Liberty fight the State Puff Marshmallow Man.
Actually, that would have been a really good idea. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what are some other particularly interesting notes from this to talk about specifically. I don't think Vigo was as interesting a villain as the ghosts from the first movie.
I will
Because
say at least he actually features more in his movie as the villain, but yeah, he's not as memorable as the Hellhounds or the or Terror Dogs rather, and not as quite as a big surprise as what Gozer turned out to be.
because once
Because
he
again, he's there the entire time.
yeah, and the thing is when he finally materializes, like he doesn't really say a lot other than a lot of lion sounding roars. Like he sounds like a lion roaring repeatedly rather than somebody making noises of
And
any
more
kind of.
cryptic stuff about him trying to take over the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have any interesting dialogue. The only times he talks clearly is literally only when he's talking to his henchman. When he's like speaking in riddles and shit. And it's one of those things it's like I don't know. I mean, admittedly,
I command you. Command me, Lord.
admittedly, we did get to listen to Venkman rattle on at him while he's on the ground and can't move. He's basically just freaking taunting him to try and distract him so he doesn't take over the baby.
Yeah. He's trying to buy them time. For whatever little help, he's trying to buy them time, telling him to try and go to the West Coast instead.
He's like, "You went to New York. New York's like a hellhole."
Why wouldn't you just go to the wonderful Fernando Valley?
Could have been worse though. He could have went to Detroit. Remember they did that joke in Kentucky Fried Movie.
Well, I mean that was an ongoing joke for a lot of
Right,
movies in the
right,
'80s.
right.
Hello, RoboCop.
But they had the guy captured, and they go, take him to Detroit. No, not Detroit. No. I get that joke a lot since I actually live near Detroit.
Yeah, I hear it's improved, but it's not that improved.
um,
I
but yeah. What else?
just ordered a 24 case of candy cigarettes.
And of course, the way they tell the story, because at the beginning of the story, Dana is broken up with Venkman, so like
That kind of
that's another
restarting that love interest again is
yeah
also a weird choice.
yeah. That was another retreating of old ground to basically just do what they did in the previous movie, where over the course of the movie he wins her over.
To be fair, he does it in a less creepy manner than the previous movie.
That is true. He actually wins her over by being more caring towards the baby than
More caring towards the baby and her, and actually being genuinely charming instead of being a noisy weirdo.
yeah. But I can't really think of much else to say about this one in particular, unless there's something you want to discuss.
Oh, the wonders of 1980s slime.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure this is about the time that Nickelodeon became a thing, too, if I recall correctly.
I can't remember for sure.
And yeah, just slime everything. Slime, slime, slime. Even their little sitcom shows on Nickelodeon, slime. This was 89? Yeah, it was 89. Nickelodeon was a thing, like about a year or two before this.
I think this is one where the similarities to the first movie with them kind of feeling like they retread a lot of ground is part of why I'm having trouble thinking about any specific scene that's really worth talking about. You know, we could talk about the court scene. We could talk about the court scene
The court
because
scene is really good, honestly. Normally, I would find court scenes extremely boring, and there's a moment or two where it's kind of but then you get like Venkman up on the stand, and he's just literally leading Tully. Not
yeah,
yeah.
he's literally whispering to him what to say.
hmm And
That,
he even gets in a little "Who are you gonna call?" at the very end of his little speech.
and it was funny when the ooze kind of burst and those two ghosts came out. Who were they again? You said,
The Scololi brothers.
and there were two people that the judge found guilty of murder and sent to the electric chair. And when he explained that, I'm also thinking, were those people that he found guilty that didn't actually do it?
I don't wonder because we don't know.
Because the way he was behaving before that, where like he was literally talking about how if he had his
Threatening
way,
their lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I had my way, I'd burn you all at the stake. It's like, what kind of judge says that and doesn't get like disbarred?
I'm pretty sure an actual judge on YouTube has looked at this scene and went, I don't know how they're legally not already free.
Yeah, that was insane.
But then as soon as they get to the particulars of them having to defend him from the ghosts and he has to toss out the blue sheet, he's like, oh, there's some real stuff there. Nice. Nice final touch.
Yeah, that was funny though. Like, and you know, I remember we were watching this, and because the ghosts had like electricity kind of like circling
hmm
around them, I was kind of wondering if that was going to make them immune to the proton packs because
No,
they
it's
were
just
like
part
electrical
of their
ghosts. It was
not
part
that
of
they're
the.
electrical, but I believe the way they kind of phrased it in the first movie is that the proton packs are on a signal level that essentially allows you to interact physically and control ectoplasm, which is essentially what ghosts are made out of.
Right, and it technically wasn't actually electricity. It was just that was supposed to be like symbolic of the fact that they were sent to the electric chair.
Yeah. So even if it was real electricity, I don't. If anything, they might have been supercharged, which might make them difficult to get a hold of, but wouldn't make them impenetrable.
Right.
What proton packs do.
But yeah, that was funny. Just watching the judge go complete ape shit, and then all of a sudden, ghosts, help me! The thing I said is bullshit is actually real. Help me! I love it. He leaps under the table where they're hiding. And is like, you guys got to do something about this. And they're like, well, why don't you just tell them you don't believe in ghosts?
And everyone else not.
That was just so beautifully done, and it really that really was like a good like shot of how ridiculous the characters that always get in their way in these movies are, where like they literally have seen that this shit isn't fake, but they just randomly say it's fake and try to lock them up anyhow.
We'll argue that at least some of them have not actually witnessed some of this happen before,
Yeah, but the
but they've heard a lot of hearsay and rumor that people have experienced a lot of crazy shit in the last 5 years.
But like the mayor's assistant, who's the one that ends up having them put in the psychiatric ward later, is the one who set up that whole court thing to get them put away in the first place. Like
After they got arrested, yeah,
right, he handpicked the lawyer, and I'm sure he probably had something to do with the judge's attitude as well.
probably.
It's like you personally know because he was in the court because he was in there talking to the lawyer before
hmm
the case started. It's like you actually know the lawyer who got picked up and thrown around by one of the ghosts, and you're gonna act like that didn't happen.
You're going to act like that didn't happen. You're going to still pretend that the Ghostbusters are loonies and try and get them committed.
It's like it just did not.
How long until you think karma was going to come around and bite you in the ass, boy?
And I have not seen any of the movies after this. I can understand if in the reboot they do stuff like this, but I really hope there are not characters
Um,
like this in Afterlife.
Not to this extreme. Definitely not to this extreme.
Because I will say this kind of mentality with characters in an ongoing series was one thing that just annoyed the shit out of me when watching through the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Is every single movie,
Freddy's
everybody.
not real. Jason's not real. It's all fake. It's never been real.
It's like and I understand that in real life that would probably be the reaction to to that kind of stuff in those settings, but at the same time it's like, but it's fucking annoying to see it as a plot element in every single movie.
At least in some of the better ones, they're literally the reason why they're neglecting it is because they're trying to still bury it, and they just believe that people are just trying to stir the pot for no good reason.
Right.
And those were the better ones,
Right.
but there's still the loopy ones too. And this is like, oh, for crying out loud!
Like I will say, like, the one thing I like about like the Halloween movies. I know we're talking about horror when we're talking about Ghostbusters, which is not really the same thing, but like
Oh, Ghostbusters
but
is comedy horror to me.
right, right.
It's ghosts. They're
But
they're attacking people. They're possessing people.
but the thing I liked about the Halloween movies is people might not have necessarily thought Michael Myers had supernatural powers because obviously anyone that didn't witness it wouldn't have a reason to believe that. But they at least acknowledged that he was a person that kept trying to kill people.
And acknowledge that he's a threat.
Yes. That was
And almost all the sequels for Halloween, that's no matter what part of the franchise you are watching, that's generally one of the better things about it. By the way, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but the guy who wrote Halloween 4, big fan of the original too.
I'm not
And when he
surprised.
had to make decisions as to what happened in the plot, he literally had to sit there and go, what would be the sensible thing, especially for like a police captain who might have not been there when it happened, but at least has records and notes on what the hell happened. How would they react to this logically instead of being an idiot?
Instead of being an idiot that's like, it's not real.
Like at one point, they're literally setting up guards to protect the house where they're trying to hide the kids and all this other stuff, and it's like that's literally not a bad idea. And then the individuals have momentary lapses of judgment and get themselves killed.
Right.
It's not an overall stupid thing, just being absolutely stupid. It's just a momentary lapse of letting the guard down, and then he gets you.
Right. But back to the movie we're actually talking
But
about.
yes, back to this one.
I do like that they gave a nod to the fact that like Slimer was basically considered a good guy now
Yep, they did
because
definitely nod to that a couple times.
like that was kind of like cemented in the cartoon. So they're like, well, we gotta at least throw a scene or two in there, and the fact that he gives Rick Moranis' character a ride to the museum at the end of the movie.
Yeah, bus even.
Hi. Yeah, you just, oh, it's
Oh, I
you.
didn't know you had your license.
Yeah, anyway, that was that was kind of a stupid, cute moment.
I will say also the visual effects have taken a couple steps up. There's occasional moments here and there in the first one where you can see some of the rough edges here and there. There's a lot less of those rough edges by this movie. The ghost effects are really seamless in this one, and one of the better scenes, if you're not looking closely, you might not really notice it, is when Dana's trying to get out to Oscar, and when he's out on that ledge, you can literally see Tully in the window. You can see Dana crawling across the ledge. You can see Oscar wiggling a little bit while he's standing there, and you can literally see the entire street below them with moving vehicles and everything still. And this is like a 4 or 5 story tall building.
Right. It's very obvious they didn't actually have a baby out on a ledge like that because
They
that would be
obviously
too
didn't have a
dangerous.
baby on the ledge. They probably didn't have people out there on the ledge, but you see everything and it's picture perfect. Again, the map painting guys were top notch on this one. Some of the visuals for that, some of the ghosts you could occasionally see like the edges of whatever weird like blue screen effect they might have been doing. Never saw any of that in this one. And they had some really interesting ideas to do with some of the stuff too, like temporary possession from the ooze, like making the one coat come to life.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh man,
Spooking the yuppies yet again today. They just can't get away from the slime. Um, the weird giant ghostly abomination that I forget what that arch is, but I know it's in New York, and it just kind of ducks underneath the arch and kind of comes forward and gives like a King Kong yell.
yeah.
The Titanic. That's always one that always kind of make me go, huh?
Well, the funny thing
Even
was,
as a kid.
didn't like one of the guys at the pier say something like "better late than never" or something?
Yes, that was Cheech of Cheech and Chong.
Yeah. Oh,
That was Cheech Marin. Yeah.
actually, one. This is something from way back at the beginning of the movie. I did love the part on Venkman's show where they had two different people that had two different predictions for the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the one, his prediction was was that the end of the world was coming like very soon, and he's
New
like
Year's.
he's like you're cutting it kind of close there. I mean, you're barely giving your book any time to release it. Blah blah blah. He's like, and the guy's like, I'm not just doing this to write a book. I actually believe this because
Well, also, did you realize that when they were fighting Vigo, it was New Year's, right?
yeah. So he kind of predicted that. It's just that
He
they
kind of predicted something almost happened there. Very close. Like, very close to that man. He's got something up in that noodle.
And I did comment that it was kind of weird. The other person's prediction was that the world was going to end in 2016
Yeah.
because that was. I don't really want to go into detail about it, but that was the worst
Day
presidential
for some people.
election, in my
Yeah.
opinion, of my lifetime.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that. Oh yes, and naked cats. Weird.
Oh yeah,
Um,
pets with no fur.
Cats with no fur. Weird. Hands it back to the hand man. Um, Trying to think anything else particular of interest to bring up. Um, hmm. Not really. It's just kind of they. For the most part, it is basically plot for plot almost the same in the broad strokes. They just played a little more safe because now they also had a TV show to back it and all that other good stuff. So yeah,
Yep.
now, I can understand where it's forgivable for some people, but again, this was on repeat for me at least once a week for a
Well,
very long while.
I don't think I ever watched any movies that frequently, but I obviously I'd say especially compared to like a lot of schlock we get nowadays and a lot of bad sequels in some other series we're going to talk about in the future.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
This is
near future.
this is at least a relatively solid entry in a movie
Yeah,
series.
I can talk about how it's basically the same thing until the cows come home, but at least it's entertaining. At least it's still well made. At least the people behind it seem to be enjoying themselves. I mean, the entire beginning of the end credits is outtakes, and you can tell they were enjoying their little bits here and there.
Like I think my thing is just that I'm just not like the biggest Ghostbusters fan. I don't like hate it, but it's just not one thing that's ever kept my interest that much, which is why I haven't played like a lot of the video games. But
Honestly, a lot of the early video games honestly suck.
oh yeah, well yeah, the one main one I actually played a lot was the Commodore 64 version of the one that got released on everything in the 80s.
Ugh. Yeah, that's not a particularly great one. and the Ghostbusters 2 for NES was not exactly great either.
Well,
However, the Japanese actually got some decent Ghostbusters games, apparently.
funny thing is the Commodore 64 version was a worse version of the NES game because it had it due to the file space restrictions on like the discs that they had. It was there were just things missing from the Commodore 64 version.
Ouch.
In fact, I'm not sure it was possible to actually win the game in the Commodore 64 version
Dang.
because you know how like in the NES version you could go back to your base and upgrade your car.
Yeah.
The Commodore 64 version, you can only use whatever you had money to buy at the beginning of the game. There was no way to go back to the base. Either that or I just couldn't figure I just didn't know how to do it.
There has to be like some sort of like control or setting or something that you need to figure out to get back there somehow because there's just no way. Yeah, that sounds like it was busted, broken otherwise.
But anyhow, in regards to this movie, yeah, overall solid entry. I don't think there's really anything else to say.
For me, I like it about as good as I like the original. I was raised on this and watched the cartoons whenever I could catch it on TV. The Ghostbusters theme was always playing whenever you could find it. So yeah, so that's gonna be that for this one, and hopefully soon here we'll be watching the next one, which will be the 2016 and Answer the Call Ghostbusters.
Did they
Ugh.
retroactively add that subtitle to it?
Yes, that was actually actively added because I believe it was added to it was added to the DVDs. Looking at the DVD right now. Otherwise, it was just promoted and just advertised as just Ghostbusters when it came out.
Just everybody call it Ghostbusters 2016.
Yeah, and then afterwards, everyone called it Ghostbusters 2016 to keep it separate from '84. And then the DVD added the Answer the Call subtitles, so everyone just called it Ghostbusters Answer the Call after that, just because it's no better or worse than calling it 2016.
This will be interesting because I've heard plenty. I've listened to plenty of reviews of it, but I've not actually watched it myself.
The kindest thing I can say about it is that it's mediocre.
Well,
So we'll see you all for that one.
yeah, we'll see what my opinion is when we watch that. So until next time, everybody, have a good one.
Good night.